my name's Paul Walters. You and I haven't really met in any real sort of in-depth conversation, but you've been brought to us through my business partner, Vikesh. And as we've done a number of podcasts over a period of about a year since we've launched, we've spoken to a number of people within the area of live events, from the virtual to the technical to the production, all different aspects. So you come into us with a different flavor, but because you've been immersed in the live events, but primarily in the production area. So our listeners generally, so let's say they come from a background where they probably just graduated, or they're about to graduate, and they may not have had a background, particularly in the area that you've had, and they may like to know, how did you arrive at that particular point where you are now, and how could they get into that area? So my first question to you, Dan, is just introduce yourself. Tell us your sort of educational background, your working history to a degree, and what has led you into the live event production area.
My name is Dan Jones. I am primarily a sound technician, broadly termed, because I do a few things within the sound realm. But my education history is nothing too fancy. I've got a level 3 in music technology from a local college down in Southwest Wales. And I kind of just worked my way up through the industry since about 18 years old. Well, not 19 years old then. So it kind of started off from just as soon as I got my level 3, I approached a local theatre company to me, which is the Welsh Language National Theatre, just to kind of say I've just finished my qualification. I'm quite interested to get into potentially theatre. I did try TV studios as well, and did a bit of work experience in some local TV studios to kind of see if I wanted to go down the TV or the live sound or live event route. So I did a week's with a TV studio, a Tinopolis TV studio down in Llanelli, and I quite enjoyed it, but it wasn't quite hitting. I wasn't sure what to make of it. And then I went into a tech week with the Welsh Language National Theatre for one of their latest productions, and they really got me hands-on deep into tech by trying to make me to build boxes for like dropping soil out of the roof and all sorts of random stuff, and kind of testing me to see what I was willing and not willing to do. But I'm quite keen with my attitude, and I'm willing to help anything or try anything, I guess. And at the end of that week, then they said, okay, when you come back from college, when you're fully back from college, because I think I still had like a couple of months left of college, they're like, we're not going to offer you a job as a production assistant, i.e. someone who just kind of sits in all departments of the production side just to kind of aid anyone who needs help. So that was kind of like my first that was my foot in the door then, and that's what kind of facilitated me and trained me from the ground up to kind of try all aspects of theatre. So it kind of started as assistant stage managing, so just kind of being someone who looked after props and just kind of all the stage side stuff. So helped source props, went to fetch props from all over the UK for certain shows, and just did all that kind of ASM stuff. I was a production assistant, so I was aiding the production manager, so doing all the phone calls, maybe writing up rough risk assessments, then they'd proof it. And it was all kind of learning in the field stuff. And then gradually I worked into more of the technical stuff, i.e. lighting and sound. And I knew I really enjoyed the more technical side of it, because I quite like doing complex-ish stuff, especially when it comes to technology.
Okay, so how old are you now then?
I'm 27.
27. So you said you started off quite young.
Very young.
You did a lower level course, and
yes.
that course that you've done has inspired you to go into the area of production, but primarily in theatre, would you say?
At the time, yes. I knew I just enjoyed enjoyed live things generally, so gigs and whatever, but I just kind of it's just kind of, this is a great starting point, and then I'm sure something will come of this, or I can kind of find my way through after that.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to ascertain from you here, and also to illuminate this to our students, not pardon the pun, is is how does a person who has been working primarily or started off, let's say, in a theatre background, able to take that skill set and apply it within the live event industry? Because what I'm trying to say is, was there a lot of crossover? And if there was a lot of crossover, because some people say that people who are skilled in theatre production are exemplary in the live events field because there's a lot of crossover. Would you sort of elaborate on that, or would you agree on that statement?
I'd absolutely agree. There's obviously little differences. So like it's more to do with how you deploy things and how you use the technology, rather than the technology itself being totally different from one to another. Because essentially it's the same stuff. It's still, you've got a mixer, you've got some microphones, you've got an infrastructure or whatever. It's just how they're deployed and how everything's distributed is different to live events. So I guess the biggest difference between live events and theatre, I would say, coming from now my more expertise side of sound, I would say, is just the way that you distribute audio and how you set up the console. It's more of a case of, with gigs and live events, it's generally, when you're first starting out with smaller gigs or bigger gigs, it's just kind of like you have a band in front of you, you mix the show into two signals, a stereo signal, and then that gets sent and distributed via the system processor and whatever into the PA. Whereas with theatre, it's more, you're using a console for all of its parameters, such as snapshots. So you have time, you have a week, generally in all theatre production, doesn't matter how big or small, you've got time to sit down with your tech and go through cue by cue, programming a desk to then send things to a different speaker, or send a certain effect parameter, or change EQ and this, that, and the other. So it's all the same stuff really, and you can implement that when you get to the bigger gigs, when you start snapshotting each gig, whether you're a monitor engineer or front of house engineer, by changing parameters song by song or scene by scene. So it's the same stuff really.
Yes. So would you say that the course that you did it prepare you for understanding how to prepare a set up a sound equipment from a front of house to monitor desk to the sound desk? Was it training you on all of those equipment prior to you starting, or did you learn that while you were in work?
You obviously, with the level 3 courses, you just kind of touch on every topic kind of like very briefly. But it was mostly music production and more studio work that you kind of focused on in college. But it gave you the basic principle of, here's a mixer, here's a sound system, plug it all in, put a band on and mix it, see how you get on. So yeah, we'd had an introduction of how you would ring out a system, how you'd ring out monitors, so your basic things, because no one wants feedback on stage. So you'd get taught the basics on an analog console with a lot of outboard gear. So how would you plug this desk into this outboard gear? How would you insert things? How would you not insert things? How you should be routing things via whatever. So it was all very physical and kind of obvious. It was kind of like everything had a hole. Whereas now, obviously, everything's digital. It can be a bit more complex without seeing it visually, it can be a bit more complex as what you're trying to achieve. So it was just over time, really. And thanks to theatre mainly, Digico has now blown up as a big console provider for a lot of things. And Digico has been in the theatre industry a lot longer than the live industry generally. So I kind of learned a lot by helping production sound engineers in theatre and sound designers, just sitting next to them and watching them do things with Digico that I otherwise wouldn't have known for the live events industry as we know.
Now, some people had never heard of Digico, and obviously, like you said, they're very big in the industry. So could you just elaborate how well known and how well used Digico is as a production technical format within the industry overall, in your own understanding?
Within or live events, or both?
Well, live events primarily, but across live events and theatre, yes.
Yeah. I guess Digico, as obviously Digico's been around for a little while now. I'm not sure how many years it is, but I think originally they all started off as theatre boards, and I think slowly people were just kind of adopting it. I don't know the full history, but people just started adopting them into the live event side as they had a high channel count. It was kind of familiar if you were someone from theatre coming in from coming into live events. It was kind of familiarity. The way the console's kind of laid out and the way it looks is very analog looking. So I think a lot of engineers quite enjoyed the similarities of coming from an analog console to kind of having that structure of, okay, my gain pod's up there, I've got all my aux sends on a page, it's quite obvious what they do and yada yada. And then slowly, as of the SD12, I believe, once the SD12 was released, they've just become so popular everywhere. And I think the biggest the biggest clawed has to go to the digital support system. So it's they're very on hand with you at all times. If you have any issues with the desk, they're always there to either give you a replacement, or they're always very helpful over the phone line to help you troubleshoot any problems. Whereas with desks like Avid, massive company, mainly for post-production and TV stuff, their support line isn't that great, and the product at the time about the SD12, which is probably the Avid profile, it was a bit of a temperamental desk, and it just wasn't the most reliable thing, and it's hard to get parts for it, hard to communicate people. So I think people just naturally just moved to Digico as things like Soundcraft got sold off to Harman, and they never did any more research into the Soundcraft desks. So they kind of just got put aside, and then Digico has just kind of like filled that gig market very nicely.
So at the young age of 27 now,
yeah,
how confident are you that if you were deployed at a live event, could you take the production manager role and set up a stage for a professional live performance? Are you confident in that skill set that you think you acquired since you've been in the industry?
I could confidently say I could definitely, I would need help in some areas because I'm a bit rusty with maybe all the legality sides, maybe legislation and kind of the more paperworky side. But with regards to deploying a system that would work for an event, I'd be pretty confident as to what to set up, from the power to the end.
Power ratio right through from the front of house desk right through to the monitor desk, right, and the mic setup, the whole lot.
Yeah, everything. Yeah, quite confidently.
That's good. And do you think you arrived at that level of confidence at what point in your career so far?
As ever, you're always learning, and you're always learning. And I'd never say, I don't know if anyone says that they've got to the top of whatever. I think I would disagree with them. I would say I've just I would say in the last couple of years actually. To be honest, because I've only started doing like the big gigs, so like big festival stages with all these complex ins and outs of different people you have to facilitate, i.e. I'm used to like going back into the theatre stuff. It's more kind of like everyone, it's quite a small group of people. It's not like big departments of people like lighting, sound, maybe pyro and your stage people. So it's all quite a small team, whereas with festivals it's like it's a truck for lights, truck for sound, or truck for everyone. So everyone's got their own dedicated team and kind of coordinating with each other. So yeah, it's only come from and like just making friends with all these departments and like kind of asking questions to all the departments also. I don't kind of just do sound. I kind of like to go off to the lighting side and kind of go, oh, so what have we got here, guys? And
yeah, that leads nice into my next question, because that's where I was going to go next, because obviously we looked at, you gave us a quick sort of précis to sound and your background in that area, but obviously anybody working in production, that, like you said, the two main areas you're probably going to be concentrating on is lighting and sound and lighting. So and obviously when you're in theatre, then the whole lighting and sound is part of how the theatre sort of is designed. Is to really encapsulate lighting and sound, the stage acoustics, the whole lot. So what's your take on your understanding of lighting in terms of competence? And was your course also preparing you for lighting as well as you think it may have prepared you as a kickstart for sound?
I see. Fantastic question. I would say no for the course, because we had a day to learn a lighting. So we kind of got put into a control room of the college theatre, got shown a 088 frog and said, so you push this fader to do that, and this is what DMX is. And we got to play with some of the, I think on the frogs, you've got up to 4 or 5 intelligent fixtures at the time, meaning moving heads or something that can got pan and tilt or more than one attribute attached to DMX channels. So that didn't really prepare me, and it kind of just blew over my head, because we'd have to think about it after that. It was all just kind of do sound.
It's probably blowing over a lot of people's head as they're listening to you now. When you're talking about DMX and intelligent lights, yeah. I know what they are, you know what they are, but some people listening are thinking, well, what is he talking about, a DMX? What's an intelligent light? So like you said, if you only had that for one day, then when you stepped out into the world of events, then you had to do a lot of, you were on a steep learning curve, would I say?
Yes, so I guess it was more to do with what I was doing in my downtime. So in my downtime, especially when I was working in theatre, I would go and I had a lot of friends that had like little PA companies and all sorts, PAAV companies. So I'd go out and help them on the weekends. So I'd go and I'd be doing lights for some YFC gig, a Young Farmers Club gig or something, until silly o'clock in the morning one weekend, or I'd be helping out setting up a lighting rig for some corporate event somewhere. So it was all kind of, I was kind of like a tech handyman to some local companies around me, where they'd kind of show me, this is the kit, this is how you use it, then you just got to take it out and set it up again and have a play with it. And so it was all just trial and error at the end of the day.
Right. So by throwing yourself in the deep end,
yes,
through your own sort of I suppose tenacity, you were able to learn sufficient amount that have now led you to the point where you are, where you can confidently work in an area that where you weren't probably when you were, say, 17, 18 in that respect. So what would you recommend for somebody who's listening to you now and thinking to themselves, most of the things he's talking about, I've got no idea. I would like to go into the technical side of event production, but I don't know where to start, and how would I progress myself through that? Do I need to do a particular type of course or short course? How do I update my skills, or is it all on the job? You tell us.
Oh, that's a tough. Me personally, I feel like from my experience, I'd say you can learn so much from doing a course and thing. It's great just to get understanding and kind of have some sort of trajectory of what to look for and what to look at to get the right knowledge of what you need to know. But anyone who's getting to live events particularly, I would say the best thing for you to do is to approach a local AV company of some sort and just tell them, introduce yourself via phone call, not email. Email generally is ignored, especially nowadays. It's so accessible. It's so flooded with random stuff for any company anyway. As soon as you email them, that email is just going to be pushed aside, or it's just going to go straight over their heads. So you're either better off meeting them in person. So just pop by. All AV companies generally are very friendly. You can just pop into their office, just kind of say, hello, I'm so and so, and I'm just looking to get into the industry, and I just wonder if we could have a conversation over a cup of tea or something about how I can potentially be of use to you. And that's through that, then they'll probably just say, okay, they'll probably give you a walk around the warehouse, how big or small it is, and just kind of introduce what they do. And then sometimes they'll probably try and test you potentially, and just kind of see how keen you are to try things out. So they might just say, oh, here's a lighting console, have a play with it, here's some lights. Or they might just give you free rein and go, this is the stuff you need, I'll help you plug it in, and then we'll get you started and I'll walk you through how to use it. And then you might start learning from there. And it's just kind of just having time with I think the most important thing is time with the kit, because anyone could, like me now, I could talk to about anything about technical stuff, and it could all sink in, or you can make notes of it. But unless you've got the thing in front of you and actually physically doing it yourself, you're never going to understand. And well, that's how I learn anyway. I'm not very good with me personally, was never very good at the whole standard education system of just being taught something through a whiteboard or something. I'd have to have hands-on experience and visual experience to kind of learn it.
And they say a lot of people do learn it, the active way of learning it by doing, rather than actually, you know, reading through it and looking at diagrams of how to set up a lighting rig or a sound system. As much as you probably need those the diagrams to make sure that things should be where they should be in terms of like you said, the whole plug-in for the DMX or for your mics and your mic stands and various other types of different mics, why you have a certain type of mic, you know, in terms of the singers, in terms of the different instruments. But yeah, so they may be written down on a paper, but until you've actually put it in and listened to it and see how they work, it's, you know, by ear then and by feeling and by doing then and making the mistakes, you probably realize that this is how it should be done.
Correct.
So that's good to get an angle on where you're from and what you do, what you've done, and how you got to where you are in such a short space of time in terms of your knowledge base. So let's try and delve into now, because you said you worked for theatre and you worked on a lot of live events. So could you cumulatively give an estimate of how many events you've worked on so far? A rough estimation.
Could I say thousands? Is this accumulatively between theatre and live events?
Let's do live events first of all.
It's probably, I'd probably say I'm nearing the 1,000 now, because I've done so many small gigs from before college, from just helping people out with no pay or anything, just kind of doing bits and bobs here and there every weekend or every other day. So it must be close to 1,000 by now. You're
probably right, like you said, because even though I didn't go into the area that you did, but I've done some production work, and I remember doing, like you said, free of charge. I worked on stage sets as a stage assistant, stage hand, and just learning, like you said, learning how the whole things are set up on stage, and have an understanding how, you know, when a speaker's been rigged up and when it's been flown, and how to rig it, and how to rig up your front of house speakers, and your speakers are going to be supported by the truss on the stage. So yes, and knowing all the connections and the safety features that are part of that whole process. But until, like you said, until you do it, so like yourself, I've thrown myself in the deep end, but I didn't go as far as you have, because this is obviously your passion and your full-time job. So as a full-time job now, in terms of that, how often do you work? Would you say within a 12-month period, how many months of the year are you out there working?
So I can confidently say, since I went freelance when I was 1920, I can confidently say that I've probably been working 11 months of the year. So it's few and far between days off, and maybe that's generous, actually. Maybe not generous. Maybe it's an over-exaggeration. Maybe say 10.5 months.
Yeah, and I suppose all your weekends are taken up in those 10.5 months.
Yeah. It's kind of, it used to, before I've started focusing solely on the big live event gigs, it was theatre from January until kind of mid-May, end of May. Then it'd be festival season from beginning of June until mid-September, and then after that it would be another tour of some sort with a band or something until mid-December, and then I'd have time off over Christmas. I've always had Christmas off. That's my kind of to see everyone and family.
For your own sanity. Yeah,
absolutely.
So in regards to this particular area, because if we're honest, production is like you said, it's a demanding area, and that's a setup process. The 1 week, 2 weeks build, when everybody's coming in and putting up the stage, putting up the rigs, putting up the trusses, putting up the lights, the sound, and everything like that. In terms of your safety, how do you make sure that you're safe? Because doing 1,000 gigs so far, and you're only 27, you want to prolong your career, obviously. Yes. And you would know yourself, not everybody is conscious about safety in all different ways, different places that you've worked in or different locations that you worked. where you worked. So how do you maintain that level of safety for yourself and the people who are probably working around you or with you?
So thankfully, from the Welsh Language and National Theatre side, we were trained on all parameters. So I'd have a health and safety course, a general health and safety course. I did my IIOLE safety passport with them as well. What else did I do? I did working at height, safe lifting.
Rigging?
Rigging, I did a 3-day UK rigging course in 2017 or 18 actually, but that doesn't give you qualification. That just gives you it just educates you on what to look
Competence.
for.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. I guess just little things like that really, and just kind of always question yourself if you're doing something and you kind of feel, should I be? It's all good. It's all well and good trying to be the hero in a gig and just getting the show must go on is the quoted term, I guess. But unless you do that safely and not put other people in danger, not kind of question yourself, then you know you've done something right. If you're kind of questioning something you've done with regards to how should I really be doing this? Do I really know what I'm hanging right now is safe, or what I'm currently hanging off the side of a ladder, is this really something I should be doing, or do you know what I mean? So it's kind of just having that initial education, I think, so kind of putting yourself in a position to have a safety course or something, just to kind of tell you what should be happening, and then you can kind of make your own judgment on site then whether it's practical or not, because obviously it's some courses are unrealistic in most case scenarios. It's you're going to deal with a lot of weird things like uneven ground and things that don't come into consideration with a lot of courses. So you just kind of make your own decision, and then obviously ask other people as well. Don't be afraid to ask other people for their opinion. Do you think, so I'm about to do this, what do you reckon, kind of thing. So it's a shared thing, so you know that if you're just doing it on your own and trying to be the hero and then it goes wrong, then the finger's on you. Whereas if you collectively try and come to an answer, then that's the best way to get the best and safest event, I would say.
That's good. I won't ask you to recall any horror stories, because that tends to sort of dampen the mood. But when I speak to students, and I have done in the past and continue to do in the future, and speak to people in the industry, people like yourself, what would you say is one of the events that you worked on that had real good practice in terms that you would give across to students or anybody potentially looking at this area? An event that you worked on that you felt they really did understand about working at heights, making sure that everybody had a vest on, maybe making sure everybody had the helmet, the boots, and if people didn't and weren't working, they literally stopped production and said, right, things are going to be corrected before we continue, and things are safe. Were you ever in that type of environment in an event and felt, I really feel safe here because they're looking after my well-being?
Yes, I think probably the best example is it's almost always theatre, because I think there's probably Bat Out of Hell. So I've been helping out with the ins and outs for the sound department for Bat Out of Hell on their latest tour. So we did Swansea Arena, then we did I can't remember what venue it was in Dusseldorf, but some theatre in Dusseldorf, and that was a proper hard hat, high vis. Well, you always have all your PPE anyway, and you can just tell from the way everything works. All the riggers everything was kind of scheduled properly, so everyone knew riggers were in first, so everyone would kind of stand back and we'd all just kind of get on with the things that we could do in the meantime. To be honest, I've had a fair share of like bad sites or whatever, badly managed sites, but generally nowadays it's all pretty it's all up there. But theatre mainly, I'd say, is probably the one that coheres the most, because you're going into a lot of council venues and stuff. There's a lot less free roam, I guess, because with festivals and gigs, well, festivals mostly then you're kind of in a field, and then it's just all temporary structures. So a lot of health and safety is kind of weaving between the lines sometimes, not always, but most of the time it's kind of weaving between the lines. Whereas when you go into council-run venues and stuff, everything has to be done by the book.
To the
So
letter.
everything's there. There's hard hats hanging up in all corners and high vises. If you don't turn up with that, you're not allowed in on the stage. A lot of festival sites nowadays, if you don't turn up with basic PPE, i.e. steel toes and high vis, you're not allowed on site. You have to go out, buy yourself some safety gear and come back once you're adequately equipped,
Right.
or until the punters are in, and then that's for a safe site.
So do you find as a freelance, because that's what you said, you now positioned yourself as, obviously you have to get your own insurance, in that respect, and you have to purchase your own PPE as well, I would imagine. Yeah. So is there a bare minimum that you would expect a production area to provide for you when you arrive on site to undertake your role?
To provide for me, bare minimum, it would be things like it would be the tail end of everything. So I'd say it would be like access equipment, i.e. ladders, scissor lifts, and all that kind of stuff. Everything in between. Maybe harnesses if you're dealing with scissor lifts and stuff. The production department generally will have some harnesses for you. But as a freelancer, I tend to take everything myself pretty much. So I've got my own harness. I've got my own hard hat. I've got my an array of high vises I've borrowed or stolen over the years, accidentally or on purpose, from festival sites, whatever. But as a freelancer, I tend to turn up with steel toe, high vis, hard hat, and my harness, because I've got a 3A3B license for scissors and cherry picker equipment for mobile ones.
So can you just tell us about that at the moment? Because you mentioned that you've got, IIOLE, and you've got your health and safety and various other qualifications. I would presume that you would have got them since you left your college course and while you've been working.
Right.
So could you tell us about the other one as well, and so for people who don't know anything about that, because they may have heard of the health and safety ones before, and various other ones that you mentioned previously. So just give us a background on that one.
So 3A3B is a category of mobile lifts. So I think there's 1A, 1B, which are static lifts. So like a scissor lift, that an electronic or I guess petrol or diesel powered access equipment. So the 3 just means mobile. So all it is generally on festival sites and stuff, you'll always see people running around not on festival sites so much, but either theatre or live events. There will be a scissor lift somewhere to either hang lights or to put in points for PA or for rigging. Or if you're doing decor and stuff, you might want to use it just to hang your drapes or whatever.
And that's like a concertina, isn't it? It goes up and down. You're talking about the one. Yes.
So the scissor lift is a concertina, so it kind of goes up and down in one motion. So it can only go up and it can only go down, and then it can move. So you can move in the air at a certain speed, but then when you drop it down all the way to the floor, you can move quicker through the venue, and it's just a quicker way of just going up and down a ladder. And generally, they reach higher, so it's safer in theory. Than just going up and down a ladder. And you can carry equipment with this. You can put all your lights and all your sound bits in the cradle with you, send yourself up into the ceiling, hang it, and then come down safely and do everything else in between. So you do all your cabling. Everything's just a bit quicker and a bit more seamless. Whereas with cherry picker, it's a what's the word for it? It's kind of it's a mobile arm. You can
an extendable arm that you might get.
Yes, so instead of being a linear up and down fashion, it's kind of you can kind of take yourself from one side of the room to the other without moving the whole unit. So you can get yourself into more awkward places. So say now if you've got roof joists or something in the way that would hinder you in a linear scissor lift.
Yeah, like a tank cannon in some respect.
Yeah.
Something that rotates on a 360 degrees that also elevates as well.
Correct. Yeah. That's all that is. So the only reason I've got my I decided to get qualification in that is because I just quite enjoy doing the rigging side of stuff as well. So I quite enjoy going up high and pulling up front of house looms and multis, and just just it's just something different sometimes than being on the floor. It's quite nice to be up high and be more useful. And I like being useful. So if I can say that I'll go and sort that out for you or whatever, then I'm happy to do so.
So that's probably testament to the fact why you worked on 1,000 events at the age of 27, particularly just in the live events industry. Forget about theatre, because you've acquired all these different skill sets, would you say? And apart from the technical set, but all the other skill sets and the qualifications that have made you quite versatile.
Correct.
Would you find that people you work alongside are as versatile as you in terms of technical ability and all the sort of skill sets that you now just relayed to us?
Not always, but like they say, jack of all trades, master of none. Not quite to that extreme degree, but you do tend to get a lot of people who just they have their thing, so they'll just do one area of one. Most of the time, it's a case of I do sound and I do this kind of sound, and then I'm happy to do that, and I'm not interested, not interested, but I'd rather not do anything else because I'm not interested, I guess. Is the attitude, but you do come across a lot of people who can just they know they have an expertise, but then they know a little bit about everything else, because sometimes it is what gets the gig done. If you have someone who just knows how to get a PA to sound good, but then doesn't know where the riggers got lost or something, so we don't have anyone to put a point in and fly it and do all the cabling and set everything else up in between, it's handy to have that person that can just go, right, you stay there, I'll go sort it out, and then you'll be able to make noise in about half hour or something. So you have a couple of those people that do run around, and I would like to consider myself one of those who can just kind of get the gig done, if you will.
So I suppose now, if someone's looking at your career and saying, okay, I could go out there, I could do a short course, a college course, I could go and sort of apply my skills, do a bit of sort of volunteer, get some basic knowledge, understanding. When I've got that, then I'll be getting paid. I'll be working on different events. I might try a little stint in theatre and ground myself in the real sort of fundamentals, and take those fundamentals into the area of live events in that respect, and push on for a number of years. So let's say they get to the point where you are. Would you say the route that you've taken is I think it's something we spoke earlier about. Is it the best route that you think you take, or would you think you would take another route to get to where you are? Now you look back and reflect.
I think there's no real correct answer. I don't think there is a real correct, just for the kind of person I am, and being quite indecisive. Yeah, a little bit indecisive generally about anything really. So just it worked for me because I kind of went through the motion of weaving my way through different things, and then just kind of finding the point as where I feel most happiest, or where I fit in the best in the industry, and then kind of just and just work on that, I guess, just kind of work forward from that point. It doesn't work for everyone. Sometimes people I know a lot of people that just went straight to university and then came straight out with a great job, and then they're just still doing that. But then those are the people generally that I do find at the gigs that have only done that one thing, and then you try and ask them to do something else, and they're like, well, I'm not really sure how to do that. So, but to be honest, the most important thing, especially if you want to go off touring, is it's something to do with your skill, but it's also to do with you as a person. If you could be the best sound engineer in the world, and if you can't get along with people and work as a team with other people, you're not going to get hired for the job, because it's at the end of the day, you're spending days, nights, weeks, months, years with the same people on a tour bus, or just generally as a small clique of people. So if you're not a very nice person to get along with, you could be amazing at your job, you probably won't be very busy. So I say that's probably the most important thing, and building yourself as a character, and just being nice and being mindful of people is definitely the best way.
So as a young technical production individual who's freelancing, where have you worked in the world so far?
So it's nothing too special at the moment. It's mainly I've done a lot of UK stuff, lots and lots of UK stuff, but I'm starting to venture into European stuff. So I've done bits and bobs of corporate stuff over in France, and I did that one gig in Germany for Bat Out of Hell. But the aim is the next step now is to get into going into the big gig section and hopefully doing some international touring. So that's like my kind of next step, my personal next step, where I want to achieve and where I want to go.
And what you think is going to prepare you for that in terms of, is it down to the connections that you've already made through the work that you've done and the people that you worked with and the various different artists and production personnel that you know? Is that giving you the work that you feel is now propelling you to the big touring productions that you want to work on?
Yes. So I would say I've basically what's happened since COVID is I've kind of just told I was very busy in the Welsh market. So I was getting booked 6, 7 months, 8 months in advance in the new year to do all these theatre tours or gigs for all the Welsh stuff that was happening in Wales. So I've kind of just closed that door of the whole Welsh stuff now, and I've just focused, and I was always missing out on bookings for bigger gigs. So I missed out on being a front of house engineer for a support act for Coffee. If anyone knows Coffee, I'd be a front of house engineer for Coffee on the Ed Sheeran tour, the European tour. I was booked up with a little Welsh theatre tour, and I'm quite loyal in that sense. I won't say no. I won't just bin off a gig. I'll stick to my words, and then I'll just wait for another opportunity to come. There was a lot of stuff like that. I've had opportunities to do all sorts, but I'd always be busy. So my since the big C word has gone away for now, I kind of just told myself I'm going to close my door to all the Welsh stuff and focus on the English side of the industry, and that has in turn opened its doors to meeting really renowned people in the industry, and then potentially opening other doors then to go on to work for bigger companies, i.e. Solo Tech, Brit Row, potentially Adlib, and those kind of companies. So that's kind of like the next step to get in with them guys. And
right. So you would rather work with a big production company or technical resource company rather than a production manager for let's say a record company for an artist? Is that?
I've never done the artist side of stuff, so I can't really comment on how it is. I've always worked through a PA company or a knowledgeable technical person of the PA or the technical industry of live events. So I can't really make a comment on that. So my I guess my ethos is to kind of see how the big guys are doing it, see how the people are doing it properly up at the top, and then take on that information, then maybe come back down into Wales later on in life and maybe spread that knowledge and try and put into practice what I've learned elsewhere. And I guess that's it really. It's just a case of I want to improve. I want to be able to say that I've seen the best production and I know how it's done. So I'd like to re-educate or implement that into my personal life.
We're coming to our penultimate sort of a question. Before I give you the last but one, could you just tell us one of the most funny moments you've had in the area of production, probably around working with artists, actors, that you felt was something that you could share with the audience?
So probably the funniest and the most embarrassing thing that's happened to me was early in my theatre career. I was, as an ASM on one of these big productions, we were kind of acting ASMs, so we'd kind of be like extras in the background for some of the shows that they were doing. And the show was it's probably based in Victorian times, so it was very kind of like slippery shoes for a nice wooden floor that was on quite a steep rake in the theatre. So I remember we were getting ready to do our last bit, so we'd walk upstage centre through like kind of a flat onto a really the steepest part of the rake, and then we'd kind of walk onto stage and then wave off a boat that's in the distance to close the show. And I think it was the first or second time that we'd done it in costume, and it was the first show, I think, the opening show of the tour. And I stepped 1 foot onto the platform to walk onto stage, and I slipped and fell down the rake in front of a full audience of about 400 people. So that was quite funny, but also embarrassing.
Yes, but not too dangerous.
Not dangerous, no.
So I'd just like to close off with now any good advice that you could give the next generation. I know you're not that old, because like you said, you're a very young man, but people coming up behind you into this vast and expanding industry. What advice would you give them in terms of getting into this industry? I know you gave some pointers earlier on, but consolidate that now for us.
I've said this to a few, I guess, young people, but people not far off my age now. But it's best advice, I guess, in bullet points would be: make the phone calls, meet the people, ask questions, but don't ask too many questions. I.e., you don't want to be a nuisance in their ear. Just if you have something that's pressing on you, don't be afraid to ask, but then just kind of stand back and just observe, or just kind of just reserve yourself for the right questions that are really important to kind of think. I know it's not always easy to establish what the right question is. Work hard. Yes, I'd put your head down, ask the right questions, and just try and show interest either in the people or in what you're trying to do, and always be honest with yourself, in the sense of, if you're not enjoying it, or if it's not quite working, then just be honest with yourself and with the production, and things are a lot more easier if you just kind of talk your way through everything, I guess.
Well, thank you very much for that, Dan. I really appreciate your candid and overview of your career thus far, and I'm sure you're going to have a very long career extended into the future, and maybe we might come back to you again in years to come to see where you are in some far-flung part of the world, setting up a stage set for some billionaire on a beach.
We'll see.
Okay, so I'll leave it there, and
cool.
Good luck. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul.